Hello, everyone. This is Craig A. Palmer, America's #1 employment strategist and career coach, coming to you live from the Employism magazine studios. This is our weekly program where we talk about everything employment. This evening, we're going to talk a little bit about games or things that children, or how children, or games that children play that allow them to learn for future career choices. Because a lot of times we don't even realize sometimes that some of the things that we expose our young people to actually have a bearing on them later on in life. So let me first thank those folks watching on Facebook Live. Let me also thank those folks watching on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, Craig Palmer or Employism Magazine. And also for those folks listening on Blog Talk Radio around the country, Georgia and other states, thank you for joining us this evening, where we talk every week about employment. We talk about things that have a bearing on our career choices. And so what we have to do on a weekly basis is really kind of help folks understand all the different aspects of employment. Because what you have to understand is, and this is where the shameless plug comes in with my book, the 10 components, there are 10 components to employment, right? So I'll put that up there, see? There are 10 components to employment. And a lot of times people don't realize that we've never been taught how to get a job, believe it or not. It's true. We've never been taught how to get a job. So what happens a lot of times is, we go aimlessly through life trying to get employment. And, we pick up things along the way. For instance, you've heard somewhere along the way, you have to apply yourself. You have to sell yourself in an interview. You have to dress properly in an interview. You have to update your resume. When in fact, there's so much more involved with getting a job nowadays. This ain't the 90s anymore. In the 90s, you could get a job very easily. That's not the case anymore. So there's a lot more involved with getting a job. So every week we talk about everything employment. And we have guests online like this evening. We have Tiffany Evans, who's a job readiness instructor, who's going to talk to us about her experiences with people playing different games and how it impacts on their lives. Because you got to remember, there are times where, think about it. As a kid, I remember as a young person growing up in Harlem, we used to go outdoors quite a bit. We ended up playing basketball from, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon to like 6, 7 o'clock at night until it got dark, and by playing basketball, it made us more athletic. It probably made us obviously more healthy, right? But we also played other games, games that allowed us to, stretch our imagination and that we don't really realize it, right? There's a great movie, and I might be dating myself here, but there's this movie called with Richard Gere, and it's called what's the name of that movie with the one with what's her name? The girl with the red hair, where he plays a millionaire, and he gets her off of Rodeo Drive. I forget the name of it right now. Pretty Woman. That's it. Pretty Woman, right? And in Pretty Woman, right? Richard Gere, who is a land developer, he's talking to his lawyer, and he mentions to his lawyer that his favorite game growing up was Monopoly, right? And his lawyer says that was my favorite game too, right? And he was like, we don't build anything. And he's like, he played with Legos growing up, right? And so what we have to understand is games that we played growing up, right? Like a perfect example. Growing up, I remember when I used to go to high school at Alfred E. Smith High School in the Bronx, right? And we used to play spades in the lunchroom. And what spades did, um, it taught us how to talk mess, right? It allowed us to how to talk mess to folks, right? And that was impactful. You know what I mean? Like, you had to have a tough skin in the lunchroom, right? You had to be able to, be able to, like, really kind of defend yourself, and that was one of the best parts of being able to play spades in school. You know what I mean? So there are games out there, there are things that we do that have a major impact in our young people's lives, right? And so we have to be able to understand that and expose our young people to some of those games. Like, for instance, as a young person, we have to expose our kids to Legos, right? And there's a major, there's a lot that goes along with making certain that we expose our kids to Legos, right? Because we have to allow their imaginations to grow, right? And let them see that there's, with Legos, you can build almost anything. If you've been to Legoland in Florida, they have a Legoland that they're building in Goshen, New York, in upstate New York, right? And if you ever look at Legos, you can build anything out of a Lego, right? Like, you can build cities, you can build cars, right? Houses, buildings, right? And now they have, with Legos, they have working parts, right? They have Lego movies with the DC characters, right? So Lego is doing a bunch of different things, right? And if you ever go into a toy store and you look at some of the Legos can be very intricate, right? And very expensive. In fact, I was watching a TV show where the guys, they had like, these shoplifters were actually shoplifting Lego games, right? And I didn't know that these Lego games were like over $100. Like, they were selling Lego games for like 100. I mean, I guess they sell in the stores for like $150, and they were selling the Legos online for like a reduced cost to make money, right? And so even crooks knew how important, how impactful Legos are, right? So we have to understand, like, we have to expose our kids and let their imaginations grow, right? And because it has a bearing on us as we get older, right? Like, another thing we have to do, like, we have to give our kids paper and pen, right? To draw. Like, I remember as a kid, I used to draw like superhero characters, right? Like the Hulk and Captain America and Spider-Man, right? So we have to expose our kids to things like that, right? We have to make certain that they understand, we let their imagination grow, right? Just today, my son is, got him an instrument to play saxophone. We have to expose our children to a lot of the different things that are out there. And by exposing them to different things, it also gives them an opportunity to kind of decide on what direction their lives are going to go, right? And now let's keep it real. Children naturally develop, imagination and things of that nature, but a lot of it has to do with exposure, right? And so some of the things that we actually have to do is expose them to things. Like, I recall one of the things that one of the teachers that my son had when he went to private school. One of the teachers said, make certain that he watches Jeopardy every night. Right now, I don't make him watch Jeopardy every night, although I watch it probably 2 or 3 nights a week. And the reason why is because you'd be surprised some of the things that you pick up while you're watching Jeopardy, right? Like, you pick up like certain things, like little tidbits here and there. Hey, Ashanta, what's going on? Good to see you on, right? They pick up certain things. And Ashanta makes a comment here on Facebook. She says, Legos and drawing helped her twins who struggled with attention. You know what I mean? And so, that's so true. What happens is we have to be able to help our children grow, and we have to expose them to certain things. And one of the things that, we have to do is, teach them how to be outgoing, right? And the way we do that is by exposing them to certain things, right? And so in order to do that, right, there's certain skills that they have to develop. One of the skills that they develop is, making certain that they're able to be outgoing, right? They are able to be, excuse me, they're distracting, right? Some of the things that we have to teach them is how to be outgoing, right? We want to sharpen their minds, right? We want them to be athletic. So we have to expose them to a lot of different things, right? Homework is not going to do enough, right? Homework will teach kids how to be, how to do algebra and, geometry and things of that nature. But some of the other things that they need, the skills that they need for the future workforce, right? We have to expose them to, right? So one of the games that I love, that I want to teach my son is Monopoly, right? And Monopoly is really impactful. If you speak to a lot of professional business people, a lot of them will tell you that Monopoly made a major impact in their life. Why? Because Monopoly really teaches you a lot of different things, right? And one of the most important things is that, and a lot of folks don't recognize this, but you should know, the foundation for wealth is ownership, right? That's the foundation for wealth, right? You can be successful and make a lot of money, working at a profession like a doctor, lawyer, teacher, right? You can make a nice, nice piece of change doing things like that. But the foundation for wealth has always been ownership, right? You look at some of the folks that are millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires, right? A lot of that was built on ownership of land, right? And, building and growing, right? And Monopoly teaches you that. One of the things that Monopoly teaches you is, it makes you kind of decide on what land you want to purchase. It allows you to kind of think of, can I afford to purchase this land? How do I save up? You might have to go around the board 4 or 5 times before you save up enough to buy Boardwalk, right? Because Boardwalk and Park Place has always been the expensive ones, right? But keep in mind, you own Boardwalk and Park Place. Now you have a monopoly right before you get to go, right? And if you build on Boardwalk and Monopoly, right, you put a hotel on it and you let somebody land on there a few times, forget about it. They are going to owe you something terrible, right? And I remember the last time I played Monopoly, and this is a while ago, but I owned a Boardwalk and Park Place. And the person landed on Boardwalk and Park Place a couple of times. Before you know it, they were out of the game, right? And the reason why they was out of the game, right, was because, I built hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place, right? So Monopoly teaches you those type of things. Now, there are certain things out there that teach other things, right? Like, for instance, nowadays, I know particularly my sons, they're really big into tablets, right? Computers and things of that nature, right? So when I was a kid, we really didn't have computers and we didn't have tablets, right, to kind of play with. So we didn't get a chance to really kind of stretch our mind. So I see our guest, Miss Evans, is joining us. Hey, Tiffany, what's going on?
Hi guys, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. So we're here talking a little bit about how games impact us in our lives down the road, and not just activities like sports and dance class and things of that nature, but exposing young people to different activities, different games, and different things have a major impact on how they develop down the road. I mean, what games do you recall playing when you was a kid?
Well, the first game I can recall as a kid when I had to first start playing was 24. the 24 game. And that was a real simple game, basically, where you had to add the numbers up or use different strategies, whether it was subtract, multiply, or divide to get 24. And you had to play it in a group, and you have to get 24 as to be the first one. So you want to win, so you have to do the math in your head as quick as possible and share it out with. And that game just puts you alive. It just helps you with coordination. You have to remember certain things to make sure you pick it up your feet. So it was concentration too, because you have to concentrate on the numbers really quick as possible. Helps you to focus. So that was the first game that kind of just I enjoyed the most when I was young.
Right. And so funny because you mentioned something, concentration. There's actually, I don't know if you ever played concentration before, but concentration, and a lot of people don't realize it, is one of the games that really has a major impact on young people and even as adults. Because have you ever played concentration before?
Oh no, I didn't play it.
Okay. So let me just tell you real quick how concentration is. Concentration basically is where you get these cards, right? And the cards have, each two cards have identical pictures on it. And you might have, like, let's say 25, 50 cards, right? Let's say 50 cards. And what happens is you put all the cards, you scatter them on the floor or on a desk. And then what happens is you've got I forget how many cards you pull at a time. I think it's like 2 at a time. So you would turn over 2 cards, right? And then if the 2 cards don't match, you turn them back over. And then it's somebody else's turn, right? They turn over 2 cards, and if it don't match, you turn them over. But what happens is while you're turning over those cards, your job is to kind of remember where the other matches, right? And so what happens is you might say, all right, I remember, there was a dog under this one. And then I remember I turned over a dog a couple of times ago on another side, and then you flip both of them over and you take those cards off, right? And then what happens is you got to take the goal of it is to be able to, get all of them, as many of the matches as possible. And whoever got the most matches won, right? Ashanta on Facebook, talked about, games like Scrabble, built up vocabulary. And it's true, Scrabble, games like that, where, you have to, in some cases, I know some people start making up words, right, when they're playing Scrabble, so you have to sometimes challenge people and pull out a dictionary and be like, yo, that ain't no word, and so, you pull out the dictionary and you'd be surprised, right? Like there's this game on, I don't know if you've ever played, it's like a Scrabble game. It's an app on the phone. I forget the name of it right now, right? What's the name of it? You ever played it?
Yeah, I know I know different ones like Words for Friends or.
Oh, that's it. The word something, right? It's called Word something.
Words for Friends.
Right. And I used to play that, right? And I had a friend of mine. Hey, Shatima, what's going on? Shatima actually has a job fair coming up soon, so I'm going to get some of that information from Shatima and let you know about it because it's in Brooklyn, so it might impact some of the people that are in your area. But so she was talking about Words with Friends. That's it. And anyway, I used to play. I don't play it anymore because I used to play a couple of folks in for Friends. And I mean, I used to bust them up like really bad, right? Because vocabulary is like one of my strongest subjects, right? And so you got to be able to make vocabulary words out of 2 letters, 3 letters, and it's hard to do. A lot of people know 4, 5, 6 letters, but when you have to kind of think of a word, that's just 2 letters, like it, like Roz, like stuff like that. You start trying to make up words. Then people start you start busting them up. Then all of a sudden the connection goes bad. So, I mean, but so there's games out there like that nowadays, apps that allow you to really kind of stretch your mind, so it's really, really crazy. Like, with particularly nowadays, one of the things that, I always kind of stress to young people and to adult, and parents too, there are a lot of things out there that we want to expose our kids to. Like one of the things we want to expose them to, obviously, is technology, and part of exposing them to technology is, making certain that, we tell them about coding, right? There's this, like games on the app on Apple that allow you to learn coding on a very basic level for young people. So we have to expose our young people to that. So I know you, when you're dealing with clients, what are some of the some of the things that you try to get them exposed to?
I do get them exposed to technology. However, I have to be like flexible for all of them. So I would show them to go to different websites and, turning into everything to fun. I love doing things that's for fun. If they don't like it like that, I always tell them, hey, go visit Apple and attend one of their free workshops. There's a lot of free places you can just attend to learn more about technology and coding. So I encourage them to go different places and also visit a few websites. And whatever works best for that individual, they normally tend to do it.
Right. So, I mean, definitely. I mean, and it's funny because, we got to remember that some of the things that we have to remind, and, I made a list of some of the games too, because I went online and I looked at some of the board games that are out there, and one of them was like Pictionary, where you ever play Pictionary?
Mhm.
Where you got to kind of like draw pictures and people got to kind of figure out what the hell it is, right? And,
Yeah.
people without, without very good drawing skills, they get caught in a situation where the person never figures out what they're drawing. You know. So we have, what are some of the other things out there? Obviously, we talked about Legos, how Legos make an impact, with young people. Um, but board games also allows us to be better parents because one of the things that it does, it allows you to bond with your young person. A lot of times
Yeah.
because we have busy work schedules, because, I know some parents that are working 2 and 3 jobs, you know what I mean, where they don't really get a chance to spend a lot of time with their young person. An opportunity to really kind of bond with them sometimes is to play a board game or to
Yes.
play chess. I'm a big proponent of chess because, and talking to a father who played a lot of chess with his son, he talked about how chess really helps young people improve their math skills, right? It also, one of the things that chess does, it really allows people to, and young people in particular, to be strategic in their planning because life takes a lot of planning, and so we've got to kind of gear our young people to plan, right? Plan on being successful. And chess, when you're trying to win at chess, you sometimes have to think 2, 3, 4 moves in advance, right? And so the only way to really kind of, help a young person to kind of start thinking about their plan and their future moves is to play games like chess, right? So let me just remind folks the number to call in. We're here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Employism Magazine Weekly, right? The call-in number, if you have any questions, you want to come online and just talk about your experiences, feel free to call 516-453-9957. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to thank those folks watching on YouTube, as well as those folks watching on Facebook. Give us a moment to play our commercial, right? So once we come back from the commercial, we're going to continue to talk a little bit about some of the games that make an impact, for young people, now and down the road as well. So bear with me one moment while we play this commercial.
Hi everyone, I am Shavonna Johnson, CEO and founder of All About Us Global Media Productions Group, TV, radio, and magazine, CEO of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation Incorporated. We are a 501c3 organization on a mission to educate, engage, and mentor our parents and teens in communities on current issues surrounding our youth. Today we are asking for your support to continue providing our informative programming through our various media platforms. To make a donation, visit the Whitney E. Johnson site at www.wijfoundation.org, or you can reach us at 631-521-7699 for more information. And as a reminder, all donations given are tax deductible. On behalf of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, we thank you for listening and your support.
And so we got one more, and then we're going to
Check
come back.
out Employism.com, the new hot online magazine on employment and business. It's growing fast. You still have time to place an ad in the magazine and in their new video game on Google Play Store. Employism Adventures, September 1st. Free download at Employism.com. And the world's biggest online magazine store, Issue.com. 20 million daily visitors. Don't miss out, guys. Employism Magazine, the latest trends in employment and business.
So we're back. Tonight we're talking about how some of the games and some of the things that we're exposed to have a major impact. So we have our guest with us, Tiffany Evans, right? So what are some of the learning skills you learned with some of the games that you played growing up, besides 24?
I also could connect with them, like chess, and what those games really help with visual, like patterns, and I'm looking at you said mention. You basically mentioned chess, so basically something to plan ahead and also to predict outcomes and alternative views. So when you get to see certain patterns, it kind of helps you in the long run when you actually like look at the industry you're going into. And also you learn from experience. Any move that you make and it's not the right move, you can connect, around that, okay, these are the moves I don't need to make and I really need to pay attention to my component moves. So they watch it connect forward, those games help you with that.
Right. And I used to love Connect Four too. You know what I mean? Because it's so strategic, having to kind of get those lines and stuff like that. Games like that, like tic-tac-toe, Connect. Yeah, I mean, these are like, those are the type of games that, like you really have. I mean, and tic-tac-toe is a quick game that you can play with just, a pen and paper. You know what I mean? So these are great games, and it's funny because some of the things that we learn, from board games, like counting, shapes, colors, figures. Like I remember, what's the name? I think it's is it Life? What's the name of that game where you press it and the where is it? Like it's a dice that pops up and
it's middle.
Right. Yeah, what's the name of that game? Right. You remember?
Oh man. I remember it, but I told you to get it.
Hey Dimitri, what's going on? Right. Yeah, so it's like I'm trying to think of the name of that game, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Oh, Trouble. Thank you, Shatima. Trouble. Okay. So there are like a lot of games out there, like Life, Trouble, just a bunch of different games, Snake and Ladders. And I remember, playing outside, like we used to play like Kick the Can, and one of my favorite games, right? And in this game, you don't realize how much of it makes an impact. And we should teach our young people, if we can, how to play that game. And one of those games is Simon Says, right? Like, you ever play Simon Says?
Yes, I love Simon Says.
And I love Simon Says, right? And Simon Says, you got to really be listening. You know what I mean? Like, these are some of the things that our young people struggle with nowadays. They struggle with the listening part of things. You know what I mean? Like, Simon Says, Simon Says, do this. Simon Says, do this. Simon Says, do this. Do this. You know what I mean? And the kids are like, oh, and when the kids play that, they love games like that. Right. I remember going to my cousin had a birthday party for her son, right? And she, played musical chairs, right, with the young, with the kids. And, so funny because kids, they don't play musical chairs in school anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's rare that you see kids playing musical chairs. So the kids, all the kids got in a circle and they had, a lot of times we don't even have enough chairs at home to even play musical chairs, right? But, I guess they put enough chairs together. The kids went around in a circle, right? And then they started playing music. And then, music stopped. You got to have a chair, and then, a kid falls on the floor because he don't have no chair, and you don't realize how games like that play a role because, some of the kids that didn't, and, ended up not having a chair, some of them are crying, they're like, like they lost, but all of this has an impact, you know what I mean? Because you have to explain to a kid, like, yo, you wasn't fast enough, right? Like, you didn't anticipate the music stopping. You know what I mean? Like, these are all things that you're going to learn along the way, right? And so it was just really fascinating to watch kids, and you can tell, like, some kids, learned how to kind of cope with the loss. And then you had other kids that couldn't stop crying, right? And so, you have games like that, like, musical chairs, Simon Says, games like, dodgeball, like one of my foster kid, he was telling me the other day, he, in his school, they play dodgeball. And one of my fondest memories, growing up was playing dodgeball in 208, in IS 208. We used to play dodgeball in the schoolyard. And, like, you knew the kid that could kick the ball for a home run. Like, you couldn't wait for him to come up, right? And, you had, like, kids that you knew that couldn't catch the ball, right? And, I mean, it's just really kind of crazy, some of the games that you remember growing up, And, I mean, nowadays, everything is kind of taking a backseat to technology. Nowadays, kids, now they're playing Fortnite, they're playing, Xbox, PlayStation, you know what I mean? Like, if I, was a programmer, and I could make like a game, I would try to make a game where kids, learn, a little bit of, while they're playing some of these games. Because now these games, like, you're not learning anything by playing, what's the name of that game? San Andreas, right? I forget the name of that game. It's called San Andreas something, right? Where the guy beats up people and stuff like that and steals the cars and stuff. Like, they're not learning from those games nowadays.
It's called Sanjay and Craig.
It's called what?
It's called Sanjay and Craig.
No, San Andreas, the game that we was looking at earlier. Right. So, some of the games that, these kids don't know nothing about, we have to kind of reintroduce some of those games to young people. We've got to make certain that these young people, know the importance about drawing, right? Because, like I said, they get some of these life lessons, like from like Scrabble, Sudoku, another great game, like, parents. And these things only cost you maybe like $1 or $2. You can get games like, what's the one where you find the words mixed up in other words? Like, you got to circle a word and it's mixed up inside a whole bunch of other letters. What's the name of that game? Like crossword puzzles, like crossword puzzles, right? Like, huh?
Any puzzle itself is a lesson to it.
Right, like puzzles, you know what I mean? Like the crossword puzzles. Yeah, crossword. I think it's crossword puzzles, right? The one where you got to circle the words, like it's all mixed up in a whole bunch of letters, and you got to circle it. I forget the name of that. Right, but we got to expose our kids to stuff like that as well because and their games, like I mentioned, like Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, games where they kind of got to be able to kind of put together words sometimes with not enough without enough letters. Like we've got to really kind of expose them to things like that. Oh, and Ashanta really said a really good thing, and it's true. She mentions that we have to know our child's learning style, right? And that's very interesting that she mentions that because we all have different learning styles, right? I know me personally, I learn better hands-on. There are a lot of folks that learn by watching a video. There are a lot of folks that learn by audio, by really listening. Me personally, I learn hands-on. You know what I mean? Like I can look at something, and as long as I do it with my hands, I learn it. What do you feel is the best? What learning style you have?
I have a competition. Sometimes depending on what it is, it may be hands-on, or I may could just read something and maybe figure out. I may need a visual time. My strongest thing is making that with me hands-on experience. That's the main one. But overall, I'm just kind of depending on what I'm learning.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I mean, that's the thing too. I talked a little bit about concentration, but one of the things that, in particular for young people, they have to memorization. Like you don't really have to be the smartest guy in the classroom. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people that because they have really good memorization skills, can do make do really well in school. And in fact, if you ever saw that movie, I think it's called Drumline. Is that the one with the guy with the drums? What's his name? What's the young guy that stars in that movie?
Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon, right? The guy that was married to Mariah Carey, right? And in the film, he talks, he's like learning by visual, right? Now he couldn't read music, right? But if he listened to something, he can memorize it, right? And be able to regurgitate it in front of someone, although he couldn't read music, right? And so there are folks that learn by that. Like I know my boy Artie, who's on Artie Green, who's on Facebook Live somewhere. He, as kids, he could play, like listen to a song and play it on the piano based upon listening to the song, and he never took piano lessons. He could just sit down at a piano and play a song by listening to it from the radio, and so, huh?
That's what I'm glad that you mentioned that because I still play games, and certain games that I do play, I do put on music to kind of help us because I know we're different, and that music is also good.
You got cut off a little bit. You said music is what?
I said when you're playing games, you just have to be mindful like how each one learns as well. So sometimes, depending on the game, if I say I'm playing Jenga, I would only put music on.
Mm-hmm.
It's helped with different people when they learn it. So it depends on the game that you're playing and what needs to be done to help other individuals.
Right. So your Jenga is one of those games too that takes like concentration, so everything don't fall down. And so, like some of the things, that we expose, some of the games that we expose our young people to and stuff like that, they're designed to kind of help, some of the different skills. And there was a study not too long ago, and I forget who did the study, but anyway, it talked a little bit about how every single person has, a skill. Now, our goal as parents is to find out what that skill is. Like, think about it. If nobody ever put a harmonica or a piano in front of Stevie Wonder, you know, who knows what Stevie Wonder's going to be? You know what I mean? Like, if we never put a piano in front of Ray Charles, you know what I mean? Like, he probably could end up being a bum, you know what I mean? Instead of being a fantastic piano player, you know what I mean? So his mother exposed him to music, you know what I mean? And so, people like, Matthew Knowles, he took his daughter Beyonce, and he's like, oh, she could sing a little bit, and he exposed her to music and let her sing around the house and stuff like that. Like, we have to kind of expose our young people to things like that, to music, to art. Like, I know there's a young lady I used to work with, and Mo, if you're out there watching, I'm talking about you, right? And she always posts these pictures of her son drawing and doing paintings and stuff like that. And the kid looked like he's about maybe 7 or 8 or something like that. And he's got a large, paint, a collection of paintings. You know what I mean? Like, he's probably could be the next Vincent Van Gogh. You know what I mean? Because his mother has exposed him to canvas and paint. You know what I mean? And these are things that we can't lose sight of. We want to expose our kids to things other than just television. We want to expose our kids to things other than just a tablet and just a computer. You know what I mean? Like, they have to be able to express themselves. Like, they have to be able to paint and draw and sing, even if they can't sing. Like, let them sing. Dance. Like, there was a time that you would go to a party and you would pay the kids $1 to dance. You know what I mean? And that's what we have to do nowadays. We have to tell our young people, like, yo, get up and dance. They might have a skill that, like, a matter of fact, a perfect example would be Guy. I know Guy usually is watching the show, so he'll probably join us in a little while, because I know he usually watches on Facebook Live. But Guy's daughter is a fabulous dancer. You know what I mean? Like, if she hasn't been in music videos, she probably will be soon, right? And she's like doing all of these those dances that are choreographed, like, Chris Brown and all of them. And so, I don't know if he exposed her to dance early in her childhood, but nevertheless, somehow she's now one of those dancers, like one of those fly girls from In Living Color, right? And so, we have to expose our young people to dance, to literature. Take your young person to the museum. Take your young person, read them some books about history. Expose them to certain things, because you don't know what skill they have. Like, every kid has a skill. And it's our job as parents to kind of find out what that skill is. What do you feel is like one of your skills?
I would say one of my skills is my creativeness. So most of them say speaking in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
I was always, I was never in front of large crowds or anything heavy. My parents and I, put me up there to do that. But as I got older and learned on my own, I noticed that was one skill that I did.
Right. So that's the other thing too. Like, we have to, expose our kids to, being able to give presentations in school and helping them get over that nervousness. Right. There's a great website. It's called presentationclasses.com. Right. It's run by a great teacher, Henry Howell. So if anyone is interested in being able to give presentations or have that fear of giving presentations, by all means, reach out to me. You can go to craigapalmer.com, or you can reach out to me on Instant Messenger on Facebook, and or you can send me a comment on YouTube, my YouTube channel, or you can give me a comment on Blog Talk Radio. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can reach me. But if you need that information about presentationclasses.com, I'm sure Mr. Howell will give you a great discount because he's a master of teaching people how to give presentations, right? So we have to expose our young people to some of those skills, right? Because these are skills that they're going to need down the road. And what happens is a lot of young people suffer nowadays from not having the ability to speak in front of large crowds. Why? Because they've lost the ability to interact with kids. Because kids nowadays, I mean, just watching kids nowadays, if you go to a school, let's just say you go to a high school, right? Or junior high school. Nowadays, kids are all into their cell phones, right? If you go on the train, you see people all in their cell phones and their music and things of that nature. And kids have lost the ability to really kind of interact with one another, right? They have lost that ability, those social skills necessary. So nowadays, what happens is, a kid gets in a fight, they don't know how to talk it out. Those days is long gone. A young person, having a conversation with a kid and being able to, talk it out. Okay, so Tima says a lot of kids nowadays are very self-directive. So I'm not really certain what she means by that, but a lot of kids nowadays are really kind of into, really kind of like doing their own thing. They're not looking to do, like, I can just tell you from being a former store manager, right? A lot of young people do not know how to work in a team setting, right? They're not playing sports. That's one of the reasons why, we have to kind of make certain that our young people are engaged in sports. Like, I would highly recommend parents, making certain that, you expose your children to sports, because what happens is a young person who doesn't know the agony of defeat, right? The young person that doesn't understand sportsmanship are going to struggle later on in life when it comes to employment, right? Exactly. So Shatima says that what it basically means is that young people are kind of into themselves and they're not interacting with one another, and which is true. Young people, I mean, you have your young people that, play sports, but, if you're playing basketball, you have a team of like 12 or 13 players on one team and 12 or 13 players on another team. There are a lot of young people out there that are not engaging in sports, right? They're only engaging in, computers, tablets, and things of that nature. And so now when they're forced to kind of have a conversation with someone or have to work something out or be in a team setting, particularly later on in life, a lot of young people, as they get older, when they start working at other, jobs and things of that nature, they struggle with being able to have a conversation with their coworkers, right? And how to, get a coworker to assist them, right? And they'll fail at the job because they never ask their coworker for help. And when your boss says, "Why didn't you ask your coworker for help?" "Oh, I didn't want to ask them. I didn't feel comfortable," whatever. Now you might be out of a job, or you can't get promoted. So very, very important. We have to make certain that we expose our young people to some of these social skills that are necessary. We have to take them away from the cell phones and the tablets exclusively. Don't let them just sit there and vegetate watching television all day. You know what I mean? Like, we have to kind of get them outdoors. We got to expose them to different skills, right? So that way, they're more well-rounded. That's some of the things that sports helps teach kids. Some of these games also teach problem solving, Like I go back to chess. You have to learn how to solve a problem. A lot of kids nowadays, when faced with a problem, they just give up without trying to think about how do I solve the problem, right? Who do I go to assist me with solving the problem? Do you find that with some of the folks that you work with?
Yes, I know we do. And I put it like a game with them so they know how to solve problems. Even if it's like the maze challenge, and then I give them like a few minutes to get out of three musical mazes with different patterns. How it's actually shaped to get people like, oh, how do I get out of this? Then you took me back out on how are you going to get this room and get yourself out of this situation? Are you going to stop? These different things are certain problems that challenges that I do give them. And I also time them, right? So certain games is about timing and it helps them with that as well.
Right. So yeah, and those are some great games, that you play with them. I mean, we have to, like you said, we have to really kind of expose them to some of the different, to the other games that have really kind of allow them to stretch their minds, and really, like almost kind of like an IQ, games. Like one of the games that was really big in the '90s. I don't think people really talk about Trivial Pursuit anymore. But when I was doing workshops with Seco, I created like a Trivial Pursuit involved with employment. And what I would do is like on Fridays, because Fridays was kind of like a dress down day, we would play Trivial Pursuit. And the questions really involved something to do with employment. So it might be like one of the questions might be, name a company that's been around since 1934 that hosts a big Thanksgiving Day parade every year, like something like that, where they might come up with like Macy's, you know what I mean? Like, we want young people to be well rounded. They have to know about, when McDonald's was established, who was the CEO of Walmart. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people can't tell you. You ask a young person, who's the CEO? Who was the founder of Walmart? And they'll tell you, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they have to be well rounded. They have to be able to know little tidbits of information. For those people watching, obviously Sam Walton, was one of the founders, was the founder of Walmart. But like we have to like make certain that we challenge, adults and young people to really continue to expand their minds, know about how was companies founded, how to start their own businesses.
Daddy.
I'm on the radio, man. Quiet.
Daddy.
Shh. Right. So
So basically, I think it's really important that as it starts at home, and we need to make sure we set a strong foundation within our youth. Even ourselves, as we continue to make family time on playing these board games and these fun family games. We also continue to make sure our kids have the social skills that they need, and they'll be excited to go to school or go with their friends to start playing certain games instead of thinking about more habits. So if we think about, hey, if we purchase certain games and bring it back in the house and have a family night of game time and, with favorite food, it will bring back the kids to doing that. And also just know that when you do that and start exposing the kids to different activities and different things to get into, it helps them explore their career opportunities as well when they get older. And they will have different abilities to actually do more things for their career when they actually, whether they want to do entrepreneurship or they want to do this, they will be flexible enough to do that and be more well-rounded.
Right. I totally agree. So, so what we're going to do is I want to thank Tiffany Evans for joining us this evening. She's a superstar, right? A friend of the show. So I want to thank her for joining us this evening. I want to thank all those folks watching on Facebook Live, those folks that made comments. Shatima, I see Tia, you're here. Um, um, just all the folks that made comments and really had some good feedback. Ashanta, thank you so much for some of your comments. And I want to thank those folks watching on YouTube. You can go to the YouTube channel. If you missed some of Tiffany's comments or some of the things that some of the points that she made, you can actually go to Blog Talk Radio and go to Family AAU and listen to the entire show. We're here every Thursday at 9 p.m. where we talk about everything employment. If you want to find out more about some of the articles that we talked about on the show, you can go to employisammagazine.com and read some of the articles there. There are articles that we talk about every week that pertain to employment and to young people getting ahead. Feel free to go to my website and pick up my book where I talk about the 10 components to employment, the 10-step pocket employment guide, which is for adults. Or you can go and pick up Success Essentials for Young Adults, which is really for young people to really kind of cut through the red tape and do some of the things that are needed to be successful in life. So I want to thank Tiffany for joining us. Thank you, Tiffany. Right.
Thank you, guys. Very nice.
All right. And I want to thank those folks that joined us on Facebook Live. And I want to thank those folks that joined us on YouTube. I'm going to end the show with some commercials. And please join us next week. Just a reminder, the call-in number, if you want to call in, you may have some comments. The number to call is 516-453-9957. Like I said, you can get in contact with me at my website, craigapalmer.com. If you're interested in purchasing the book, you can buy it there as well. You can listen to the show that we recorded tonight on Blog Talk Radio. You can also watch it on YouTube channel. And if you're a friend of mine, you can watch it on Facebook Live. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to play a commercial and have a great evening, a great weekend, a safe weekend.
Check out Employism.com, the new hot online magazine on employment and business. It's growing fast. You still have time to place an ad in the magazine and in their new video game on Google Play Store. Employism Adventures, September 1st. Free download at Employism.com. And the world's biggest online magazine store, Issue.com. 20 million daily visitors. Don't miss out, guys. Employism Magazine, the latest trends in employment and business.
Hi, everyone. I am Shavonna Johnson, CEO and founder of All About Us Global Media Productions Group, TV, radio, and magazine. CEO of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, Incorporated. We are a 501c3 organization on a mission to educate, engage, and mentor our parents and teens in communities on current issues surrounding our youth. Today, we are asking for your support to continue providing our informative programming through our various media platforms. To make a donation, visit the Whitney E. Johnson site at www.wijfoundation.org, or you can reach us at 631-521-7699 for more information. And as a reminder, all donations given are tax deductible. On behalf of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, we thank you for listening and your support.